All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a hard look at the absolute dominant assumption in AI development right now. I'm talking about the idea that we just need massive, overwhelming compute power to reach true next-level emergence. It's an assumption that's basically become an industry instinct at this point. But, as we're going to see, it is missing a massive piece of the puzzle.
So, here's a question we really gotta ask ourselves. If emergence only comes from sheer size, does the future of AI belong strictly to those very few organizations who can afford to buy the biggest, most brute force compute pile? Or, and this is what we're exploring today, is there another way entirely? A way that doesn't just rely on scaling up, but on fundamentally changing how a system is structured?
Let's start with part 1, the scaling assumption.
You know the drill, right? The mainstream scaling hypothesis is pretty straightforward. You increase the parameters, you increase the compute, you increase the training data, and then, well, you just wait for a surprise. You're basically waiting for a sudden jump in capabilities, like advanced reasoning or sophisticated tool use. It's essentially throwing magnitude at the problem until something magical happens.
And that magical leap? That's what we call emergence, a sudden qualitative jump in capabilities resulting from quantitative increases. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. While this definition successfully tells us when a capability threshold was crossed, it totally hides a massive conceptual blind spot. It tells us the jump happened, sure, but it doesn't actually explain why the jump became possible in the first place.
Which brings us to Section 2, the black box problem.
Seriously, what is actually changing inside the system when that qualitative jump happens? The scaling hypothesis treats emergence as a statistical surprise. It's kind of like shaking a box of watch parts and just hoping you accidentally build a Rolex. Sure, massive scale might correlate with emergence, but we all know correlation isn't mechanism. Treating a massive breakthrough as just a happy accident we discover after training? That is a major limitation if our goal is to engineer reliable intelligence.
So, we're looking at a pretty hard dividing line here. On one side, you have the scaling hypothesis, emergence as a statistical surprise driven by magnitude. But on the other side, there's a totally new framework, the energetic paradigm, or EP for short. EP views emergence not as an accident, but as a deliberate engineered transition.
All right, Section 3, the energetic paradigm.
Okay, so the absolute crucial point here is that the energetic paradigm treats capability as a function of structured energy flow, not merely size. Think of a floodlight versus a laser. Instead of compute budgets getting wasted on noisy, redundant pathways, like the floodlight, EP focuses on usable energy moving through highly organized, coherent routes. It's all about preserving the signal and maximizing efficiency.
So how does it actually do that? Well, it boils down to specific structural conditions: coherence, path discipline, attractor formation, and stability under perturbation. In plain English, it means engineering the system to stay relentlessly on track even when things get super noisy. By doing this, EP drastically reduces structural friction. It organizes decision depth within clean, stable topologies rather than just endlessly blowing up the size of the network. Moving right along to Section 4, engineering structural coherence.
If there is one mantra I want you to take away from this whole explainer, it's this. Bigger models wait for emergence. EP already engineers it. That is the core difference. Scaling simply injects more energy into a system, but EP actively reshapes the structure of the system so it can cross a capability threshold without exponential growth. Scale expands, right? But structure organizes.
And I want to be super clear about this. This isn't some speculative, maybe 10 years down the road promise. EP already produces emergence through structural coherence at this layer right now. It achieves this key conceptual transition conceptually, demonstratively, and experimentally. The mechanism is real and it is entirely actionable today.
Now let's put up a quick guardrail here, just to keep things rigorous. We're not claiming EP has magically solved every single frontier-scale AI problem in existence. Actually, scratch that, no single paradigm has. But what it undeniably proves is that the structural mechanism for emergence is achievable right now at the levels we're analyzing. It proves that coherence-driven emergence is a highly viable reality.
Let's wrap this up with Section 5, beyond brute force. Look, nobody's denying that scaling works. Scaling is real, and bigger models absolutely create one valid road to emergence. We know that. But we really need to stop treating brute force as the only mechanism for achieving these cognitive jumps. Structural transition creates a second, profoundly efficient and intentionally engineered road.
So let's really hammer home this final takeaway. Why on earth would you just cross your fingers and wait for a statistical surprise when you can actively engineer the structural conditions for stability and capability? EEP engineers the conditions that make emergence achievable, stable, and testable. It literally takes emergence out of the dark box and turns it into something you can deliberately build.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. If you no longer have to just wait for emergence, if you can actually target it through structural design, what will you engineer next? It's a question that really challenges us to rethink our entire approach to AI infrastructure. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and definitely keep questioning the paradigm.